Welcome back to the Taylor's Tech Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Randy, how are you?
I broke Twitter, apparently.
Again?
You broke more than Twitter. You should give some context to all of our non-Twitter users, also known as normal human beings.
Yeah, in the words of Dave Chappelle, it's not a problem because Twitter is not a real place. So it's fine. Apparently, I got canceled on Twitter, but I don't care because Twitter is not a real place. So
yeah, that was crazy.
There's some context to be had for sure. This broke.
Oh,
Wow.
we're talking about this.
Is the foam tip still attached to it?
The phone tip is separate, and whatever happened here is there. This part was wedged in my ear, and you would have thought that the way people snap, you would have thought I went and peed on Steve Jobs' grave. You would have thought that I told, like, the amount of backlash. They're like, he just wants to hate on him and get a response. Like, you don't know me. He's like, of course, finding another reason to dig at Apple. Who are these people? It was interesting. I'm gonna be honest with you. The response on Twitter was very
Unwarranted.
Audience of Talos of Tech and just tech in general. Stop fanboying things that you just blindly will just. I get that people have preferences and stuff like that, and people were putting words in my mouth. That's the funny part. This is a black foam tip. Anybody who likes Apple as much as they were lashing at me would know Apple doesn't do this. I know what happened. Well, that's what you get for going third party, you dweeb. That's what you get for doing it. Like, the amount of just, like, visceral, like, well, good, I hope it gets deeper in the ear for you being so stupid. I'm like, what? Now you got permanent transparency mode, you jerk. I'm like, all right. Guys, all I'm saying is I went to pull it out, and it broke, and you would have thought they're like, that's not Apple's fault. I never said it was.
The man asked a question.
I was just like, dude, this is a thing. It's kind of weird. And while my wife was grabbing the tweezers, I took a photo. And you were like, instead of trying to capitalize on all the Apple hate, it's not a monetize. What are you talking about?
Randy getting his check. Thank God.
Yeah, He's
just cutting his AirPods tips.
Yeah, take that.
There we go.
It's very entertaining. It's entertaining to see how people just like jump to these conclusions.
I was not expecting that tweet to blow up. I saw how much attention it was getting, and I was like, my God.
The impressions.
318 likes.
Wow. The amount of people. I want to get a screenshot for you guys. I'll probably, because I'm using the phone, I'll do it on the iPad. Okay. 50,000 interactions with my tweet.
Wow.
50.
Zero.
Yeah, like 50, not 15, 50,000. And I was like,
wow.
Okay. Like, that's kind of weird.
First of all, I'm sorry. That would have scared
sucks.
me in that situation.
To be honest, I didn't, like you said, I was expecting to, like, I thought, okay, here's, maybe naively, this is what I thought. Hey, guys, look at this silly thing that happened. I was advocating for the foam tips for so long. I found my first con. Well, this is cool. And I thought it was just for my followers. Like, this is cool. I'll talk about it on the
your
pod.
inner circle.
My
you
inner
thought
circle.
There'd be,
you
know, the good old recurring people would just be like,
the same 20 to 50 likes, maybe some response, a couple of retweets, and be like, hey, this is going to be fun to talk about on the podcast about what happened. And it just blew up. I went to trending to see, like, I swear, if this thing trends, I'm gonna have.
Randy Vasquez is trending
with Deadpool 3.
My days, I was like, getting my check, crapping on Apple. Take that, Steve Jobs. Like, you would have thought that I was the biggest Pixel fanboy, Samsung notch haircut.
Oh, the the charger in my car doesn't fast charge my laptop. That's not Apple's fault. I'm just saying. This is how it works.
I encourage, just because we're drawing attention to it, I encourage everybody to go look at all the responses on the tweet because
I thought you were going to say, I encourage everyone to stick foam tips in their ears.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah,
How to get attention on Twitter.
Oh, and for anybody who might be wondering, because again, I'm just talking to the inner circle here at this point. These tips cost like $11. Okay, so yeah, you get what you pay for. No crap. But like, at no
So
point
you didn't
did
answer
what
my
I
question,
pay
though.
for.
So
but
you're not recommending the foam tips then?
Oh, you're right. I did see you ask that question. It's not that I'm not recommending them. The real issue is not actually this part. The issue that I'm having, as you can see, I can't get the black part. I can't get this off. I don't know how.
Even with tweezers, it wouldn't.
Because
yank.
the latching mechanism that's in there, it clips.
It's really hard.
I
It's
can't.
It's a
That thing
rigid
is
clip.
stuck on there, and
Oh.
to be honest with you,
That's a problem.
I told you guys how I'm not upgrading AirPods Pro 2 because there was nothing wrong with these. If I break it, well then I'm getting AirPods 2, I guess.
Hey.
You know,
Good segue.
I'm not trying to break them, but yeah, I'm gonna send you guys the screenshot, just like the naively, and then I try to move past it, like, hey, look at this cool little skit I did about Drew in the back. I like just trying to get away from it, like a dirty diaper that just keeps following me. I did not want any.
You better
more.
start to like dirty diapers, Randy.
Dude. Why does Twitter do this thing where it says you can only view analytics about your own tweets? It is my tweet.
No.
I know. I saw that too.
Not anymore.
It works on. Yeah, you're right. It's the people's tweets now.
It's the people's.
It's
So
apples.
I do recommend the foam tips because I still prefer them over the Apple-based.
You did
one.
say they fit much better in your
Oh.
ears, so.
And if
They fit a
the
bit too
2x
good.
if the 2x noise cancellation is true, I can only imagine because like that I heard better ANC and transparency with these in my ears than I ever did with the silicon tips, and that's really cool. I do recommend the foam tips still because I did not intend on ever taking them out. Like that's if this was part of the final build of AirPods, I'm happy. I'm just now I broke out the silicon ones again because it broke. So I'm like, all right, gotta put it back on.
How
But then I'm
much
like,
left is there on the
How much what?
on the AirPod? Like how much can you get with the tweezers to pull off that broken tip now? Because I feel like there's at least enough to like squeeze it off, squeeze it off,
No,
or
but
at least
the tweezers don't have grips. That's the thing. It's not
They
as
slide.
strong.
Well, then put some
it
hot glue
just-
on it.
I'm not doing a science project here, Mike. I just want my
These are
AirPods to
solutions.
work. These are not solutions. Oh yeah, I'm going to take my wife's tweezers and put super glue
Well,
on
if
it.
you.
That's a
look
conversation
at-
I want to have.
You can always take them off.
If you look at AirPods Pro without the tips on them, there's a protrusion where the speaker part is.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what I can see of Randy's foam tip, it feels like if you were to try to reach in and get a good grip on the tip, it would be poking the tweeter. It would be poking the part that the sound is coming out of.
We're gonna
I
do
think
something
so.
that's very. Sorry for our visual people here, because I know it's gonna get really weird, but I
mean
need
audio
the
people?
macro mode. No, visual. 'Cause
Ooh.
no.
Oh, you could easily
you see
easily
that?
use a some pliers
can't-
or you can
No,
easily
this-
in there.
I can't grip
I've
it.
had
That's
this
very
situation. Not the exact same because I never bought the phone tips, but my last AirPod Pros, the silicon tip broke,
small. Oh man.
and the part that sits in your ear separated from the part that connects to the Pro, just like almost exactly like that. And I tried to get it off. It was that connector, that little thing that snaps on,
Yeah.
is really hard. It is really like
Oh, I get it.
stuck.
But I think you
But-
can get off. Maybe have an Apple employee do it. Because then if they break it, then they can just give you
No,
some
because they'll be
new
like, "Hey,
AirPods.
this is not an Apple employee will be just as bad as all those replies on the tweet where like, this is not our problem. jerk. That's what you get.
They might try. You'd be surprised. The Apple
You'd honestly be
employees
You're
would
surprised
try.
because I went to Apple this week and then last week, or anyways, between last podcast and this podcast, I went to Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And I got I didn't mention this last week because we were talking about something else.
Oh my god.
I got a whole new pencil for free.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't
Sweet.
connecting to my iPad and it wasn't connecting to the employee's iPad. And in that moment that I got the pencil, I'm like, oh, wait. I sometimes hear crackling in my AirPods Pro. Can we see if like you could do a test, like do the whole diagnostic thing? And the lady's like, well, when did you get them? I'm like, I think 2.5 years ago. And she's like, we can go check it out, but I can't guarantee anything. She comes back maybe 30 minutes later after I'm checking out the new Apple Watch Ultra for a bit. And she's like, okay, so we replaced your AirPods with some new ones, still the same case, and it's no cost.
Hey.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I was
But
gonna
like,
say,
I'm
this is
way
Drew's
out of
story.
warranty. I'm way out of warranty. Like, there's nothing
Right.
close to it. And like, it wasn't bad to where like I couldn't even hear anything out of them. It would just happen like once a month.
No, Apple customer service is really like spot on about stuff like that. Drew told a story, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, that they not only did they just here's new ones, they overcompensated, and he had extra AirPods, and he was like, "What am I supposed to do with these?"
Oh yeah, that's
and,
right.
And they're
I
like,
forgot about
whatever,
that.
you know what, just keep it. And he was like, I mean, I'll send it back.
They were
like,
trying to figure out what the problem was, so they tried to replace just the pods.
Yeah.
And I got new pods, or one new pod, and it didn't fix the problem. So they said, okay, we'll send you a new case then. And I was like, do you want the pods back? And they were like, nah, whatever. They just didn't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, they might help you out if, I mean, I know it's a drive though. I mean, whenever you're in the area, maybe you're near an Apple store, even out of warranty, they may try to get them off, but yeah, I don't think they would qualify for the same replacement thing that me and Mike got, because that was part of a early manufacturing bug that they said if your AirPods are before this time, I think it was October of 2020 or something, if they're before a certain period, even if they're out of warranty, they'll replace them for free. Whereas Randy's is a third-party attachment, and they'll probably be like.
But my point
"That
is at
sucks."
least, yeah.
But-
My point is at least bring it to Apple, and maybe they can do something about it before you do anything drastic. Even though I do advocate that you can get it done with some tweezers or some needle nose pliers, but
I've tried the tweezer thing, and the tweezers slip. It doesn't have a grip, so that
needle nose pliers then.
I don't even know what that is.
Have you tried to take the rubber? If anyone hasn't done it yet, when you take a rubber tip off of AirPods, it requires a bizarre amount of force.
Yeah.
It's like
You have
uncomfortable
to
amount. Like
invert it, then pinch it, and then hope you don't actually tear
it's a hard pull. So if you don't have that extra surface area to latch onto, I understand why it's probably stuck on there pretty good. So
Yeah.
there's probably a way, but I understand the lack of success with that.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
That's a
those
bummer.
things. I don't have those.
Yes, you don't have needle nose pliers.
No.
This explains the Tesla issues before, with the battery.
oh, he put it in the chat. I
And
like how we got a transparent.
I was gonna say, I
PNG.
appreciate the PNG of it.
I still haven't used Subject Lift on my my 14 yet.
Why not? Well, I guess you might not have a need to.
And then
I use it
also-
all the time.
I don't think there's a day that doesn't go by that I don't do it. And if I just to see what it will
do it in my
capture
sleep.
too. Yeah, I'm always just like, it can't get this. Oh my god, I got it! Like I'm like a kid seeing it for the first time every time. And then I go to my iPad. I go, you are so worthless and stupid to me. How dare you?
Even though it got Stage Manager.
I haven't ran the beta on iPad, so I don't know nothing about that.
But how do you? I know you haven't run.
I don't
it.
know anything
I
about
mean,
what you're talking about.
I barely got, I don't know what you're talking about. I couldn't, I had to charge up my iPad because it was dead when Stage Manager came out. I was like, oh, here, let's see what happens. But how did you feel about that change of heart Apple had? Did that surprise you? Did it not surprise you?
It surprised me. Not because I knew it was software locked. You
the whole time.
It's not.
I knew it.
There's so much Apple could be doing with iPad or just older generational
You don't say.
hardware that we're like, no, you're choosing not to. Like, there's no logical. I can't see a logical linear connection as to why this would work for only this particular thing running like that. If there's so much hoopla, but I'm like, Apple's gonna Apple.
Sounds like a lot of.
Yeah. Hoopla. Listen, when I can't curse on podcasts, I start doing SpongeBob references.
That's good.
Nothing
more family friendly than SpongeBob.
That's right. Yeah. This is a load of barnacles.
Right.
So I am surprised that they just openly backtracked it. They're like, oh, okay. Like, what does that tell you about ourselves that bad? Is just feedback that harsh? Because Stage Manager is not revolutionary. You're just changing how the UI moves. All the same.
It's windowed apps, which we've had on computers for decades. Yeah.
But the background apps don't close out when you switch screens and you just move them over. The background function is still happening. So all you're doing is you're just changing out the layout about how you would get those other apps with some type of visual element that you can have eyes on them, but it doesn't inherently change anything with it. So I knew, I was like, no, this is not that. This is them just trying to move iPad Pros on purpose.
And Airs with M1.
And Airs. Because the problem is they're so good. My new theory that I believe with this is that, well, one, Apple listens to our podcast. So thank you, iPadOS team, for hearing us and working with us. But my other theory is that in 2018, when these beautiful works of art came out and we were gushing and like, this is the future, I'm going to move my whole workflow to this. In 2018, they had planned to do so much more with a Pro with this new layout than anything before. And I don't think this is a situation where I think we are, Drew and I in particular. Sorry, Nick, if you're checking. I know you're trying to sell your 2018, but I think this is a situation where Drew and I were actually with the people and not being fanatics. I think so many people hold on to this iPad or 2019, and there's nothing innately wrong with them, that without seeing the numbers, Apple's like, nobody's buying the new things. Like, there's no need. You haven't given me a reason. And when you start software locking things, but then you make iPhone and MacBooks so powerful, then I just don't give a crap. All right, fine. Software lock. I'm not using this anyway. And they're like, you're bluffing. Yeah? Watch us. And then 3 months after Dub, they're not bluffing. So like, fine, go ahead.
That's what this was called on? Was it us calling their bluff? Like, they didn't see very many sales for M1 iPads, so
yes,
they were like, well,
I do. I genuinely believe. Because why randomly on some random Tuesday would you change your mind now? Why? That there's no other reason for you guys. Hey, we found a way to make the code more efficient. That's not how code works. You introduced the software back in June, and you said it's only going to work on this because of RAM management. My butt cheek. Yeah, right. They're full of it. It was completely to drive sales, because that's just, it's Apple's a for-profit company, and let's call BS when we see it. It's kind of a jerk move, but we just didn't care because it's iPad, and you haven't done anything with iPadOS, so there's no reason. And the fact that you're now backtracking on that, okay, cool. I'm still not using the iPad for that anymore. Apple has put so much resources, rightfully so, into macOS and iOS. I don't need iPadOS anymore. So I don't regret having iPad Pro.
They're feeling that, you think? They're feeling the effects of that. Less and less people using iPads are justifying iPad, especially expensive iPad.
You remember
purchases.
5 years ago when people was like they completely gave up on Mac, and they're now all in on iPad. They completely abandoned the Mac. And they're like, we would never do such a thing. We are gonna. And now it's like they're putting so much research. Like they've given up on iPad, completely all in on iOS and Mac. And so they keep like leaning into it. There's no reason. I think we can sum it up as perfectly as I think the rant video you might have done, Drew. If not, I'm visualizing a rant.
Which one?
There's no reason that you're going to put a weather widget on the iPad and call it a major upgrade. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's basically it. No stage manager. Okay, fine, whatever. We don't have the...
And that was like 95% of iPads. Because like, what was most upsetting at DubDub was they spent almost the entire section on iPadOS talking about features that were only coming to M1 iPads, which are not most iPads.
Yes.
Like, the vast majority of iPads do not have M1 chips. Most people don't upgrade their iPads annually. M1 iPads hadn't even been out for very long in the first place, and they cost a lot more. So, yeah, there was like all these features available on the year-old or less iPads. But if you have an iPad that's more than a year old, you get a weather app. That's the update. And you don't even get the lock screen
you get to say
customization.
I know. You get to say thank you for the major iOS update or the iPadOS. Yeah, no, that's you get a weather app and congratulations, and you better say thank you for that. May I have another?
Right.
I mean, at least macOS got a calculator.
We've had that for a while. But the watch got a calculator before the iPad, which I found funny.
The fact that
iOS
iOS
got anything else.
Yeah.
What does that tell you when you see iOS adopting more watchOS features than anything from iPad, when iPad used to try to lead the way and then let it roll over to the iPhone? Now it's like, nah, we're gonna adopt some features with the lock screen or the face of the phone, and now allegedly an iPhone Ultra, so another Apple Watch thing. Like that. What does that tell you? That like we are not going in. I'm not telling them to go all in on iPad. I'm just saying that my biggest issue with Apple, and I'm not talking about the naming convention of it, but if you're gonna charge a premium, and in this case call it a Pro, and give me a weather app, you can go pack sand. You know,
it's a fun activity.
Well, then you could go kick rocks, Mike.
That's also fun. I live for the simple things.
So fun. What's your theory though, Mike? Do you think they found a way to make it work along the way, or do you think they could have done it before, but they were trying to move inventory? I know
they've
we'll
been
never
sandbagging iPads for days, and this is something that they're holding in the back.
They were waiting for
recesses
the
of
single
Apple Card.
stack.
Exactly. I don't know. I think on the same lines as Randy, this was something that they knew they could just gain a quick buck on, and they saw that people weren't going to go for the bait, so they were finally like, okay, I guess we'll release this to non-M1, which is very, very disappointing. I don't know what the team's doing. I've got no clue what they're doing. I don't know.
I'm not sure there is a team at this point.
I don't know what they're planning for.
They're focusing on the big picture.
They must be making a Surface Duo competitor or something. I don't know. Because there's zero focus on making better iPads. So.
You disagree, Drew? Do you think that this is something they recently solved, or?
No, I think we're all... I was hoping one of us would disagree with the other, but I think we're all in agreement that we've seen Apple software lock features in the past. Like, one of the more recent... Well, not recent, but it was a while ago that I remember very clearly was the Quick Take video on iPhone 11. They were bragging about how easy it is to change the frame rate and the resolution straight from the app, and you can hold down the button to record a video. And they were calling that, this has quick take functionality. Purely software. It's just a software change to the camera app. And they did not bring those features to the older iPhones, which we had been asking for years. Please let us change the frame rate and resolution without going to settings. And they were like, you can on 11. You can't on 10S. You can't on 10. So we complained.
You're right.
Everyone felt like, oh, iPhone 11 has these cool new exclusives, and then Dub came around and they brought all those features to the rest. So it was like a short-term way to advertise a product to make it seem like it's better than an older product, and then as time goes on, they cave. Once they've made their money and they realize that it's a done deal, we're not winning people over for that anymore, then we revert back. So similarly, I feel the same way about the iPhone 14 series with the A15 chip. They put the exact same A15 as this phone, but they don't give it ProRes. And also, they give those iPhones action mode, and they don't give this phone action mode. Is there something in the accelerometer that needs to... I don't believe. That's not how stabilization works. I saw some people trying to argue that, well,
works.
It uses the new G-force accelerometer to measure the shakiness of the... I was like...
No,
a gimbal is just, it's a chip interpreting shaking video. That's all it is. It's a chip that's encoding motion and stitching it together and cropping. It's the same exact chip on each phone. They could bring, and honestly, that might change. We might have another iPhone 11 situation come Dub, and they'll be like, and now you can have QuickTake on your old iPhone.
14 doesn't sell like they're hoping.
Which it sounds like it isn't.
I know. I mean, shoot.
Good.
The Apple sheep I didn't finish watching the video because then we had to do the podcast, but I saw your like I didn't finish watching, but like, yeah, this is I have family and friends over this weekend, and this morning it was brought to my attention. They're like, someone's looking at my lock screen. Kudos. Let's give flowers to the software team for iOS, because that's how powerful people are looking at my lock screen, and they're like, yo, look, that's not the new iPhone 14 Pro. Because of the indicator of the what do you call it? Static peninsula.
Static.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked, I was like, I could not care less. I'm not even gonna get a review unit. And he was shocked. He was like, that's not like you. I'm like, I mean, everyone was so impressed with my lock screen because I customized it with the time and the behind my wife and the whole thing, and you were just as impressed. And that's where it shines. Like, my phone still feels new. The iOS 16 was such a big update for just interacting with it. It feels like a new phone, and I could not have been happier. And for once, I feel like with the iPad, I was saying with me and Drew a couple years ago, I feel like this is a situation where most of us are with the masses that, you know what? We don't really need to. People like Mike needed the upgrade, and I'm glad that Mike got the 14 Pro. People like Nick, who needs to always have the latest, greatest for battery and camera. I get it, and plus that's a business expense to him, so I get it. But if we're representing, our listeners, in a sense, if we're being the voice for our listeners and they're sitting on the fence, I like that we lead with our actions, and I like that there's stagnant or that we're not all in the same thing, but there's this shift even on the panel here where Mike does have the new phone because he represents somebody who doesn't upgrade every year and still got this one, and it works for him. But I think we can all collectively then, in a sense, agree that it's really the iOS itself that's carrying the phones. Not the hardware themselves. It's the iOS of it. So software locking kind of sucks, but I expect it to be. But then going back to iPad, I am shocked that they're like, oh, nope, Stage Manager. And it makes me that much more mad that they don't really take iPadOS seriously, because imagine if they did that for all the other genuine complaints that we have. Who's really complaining about Stage Manager? I don't know anybody who is. But all of the genuine gripes that we have about iPad, the bare minimum, help us, get a battery control indicator so we can optimize battery charging and health, or at least show the battery health of it. Give us
a calculator would be nice.
A calculator would be nice. I mean, the point is
these aren't big favors we're asking. These aren't big requests, in my opinion, and we still don't have it after 12 years of iPad.
Yeah,
It's
weird. The whole thing is just weird.
Yeah, I think it is pretty genius, though, when you think about it. Like, from a
Software
business
locking
perspective, I saw at least a few people commenting that they bought M1 iPads for that reason, and now don't really... I mean, they still get the external monitor support, And I think people are blowing that up to be a more important feature than it really is. They're like, well, Stage Manager without external monitor support, what's the point? And I'm like, how many of you people out there had these external monitors just sitting around, but you couldn't use it with your iPad until the M1 chip got... I mean, iPadOS 16's not even out yet. You're on the beta if you are using external monitors. So it's like... And the people I know that have tested external monitor support on iPadOS have said it's buggy. And it's not working very well anyway. So I'm personally not a believer of the Stage Manager only matters if you have external monitor. It's like, these things have batteries in them, people.
Right?
You take it with you. It's not a desk. It's not a tower. This is an iPad.
You want it so
goes
bad
with
to
you.
be a MacBook, like the 12-inch MacBook. People want it to be so badly that there's MacBook Air for, M1 or even M2 if you wanted to. There, like if you I don't say this to crap on iPad. I'm just saying that like when people are trying to turn it into Mac that much, it's because you're trying to substitute for the OG. Just get the Mac. And as I think we all, I'm pretty sure we talked about this. I don't see anything innately wrong then if you don't need horsepower like that. I don't see anything innately wrong with getting M1 MacBook Air. That seems to be the best value then if that's what you want, where you can have two screens and you're working with it. Because the people's like, no, I want the LiDAR. No, you don't. You're not using LiDAR. Don't lie to me. I had somebody tell me that. Well, but the LiDAR. No, shut up. You're lying. Don't lie to
my LiDAR's going off. Yep.
Yeah, you can lie to me, but don't lie to yourself. Come on now. If we want the bleed through to be close to macOS, but then let's just go all in and take it a step further and go back to the thing that we've been advocating. iPad needs macOS on it. Do it, like that's what you're trying to get to anyway. That's your end result. At least then you have proper file managing systems, and then you actually have websites that will run correctly. You can then, Lord knows, you could most likely do slightly more genuine multitasking, even if it's on Zoom. Say we're working off of Discord. Some people need Zoom, or say you want OBS. You can actually have these type of applications running in a way that it should be utilized and optimized to do so. But until then, we're just trying to pretend the iPad is something that it's not, and it's because
and they didn't quite give in to everything either. They didn't give it to the iPad Air 4. Which has
is weird.
The A14 chip, which is very close in performance to the A12X. So that's, a lot of people were annoyed by that. They were like, why? So that, to me, pushes the narrative that it's a cost-related thing. They're only giving it to Pro iPads that are older because we paid more for those. And the Air 4, if you're buying secondhand, is going to be much cheaper than a Pro.
Yeah.
Usually, from what I can tell. So, to me, that motivates that this is a financial... Because some people were just saying, no, I mean, they got the backlash and they heard the complaining, so they decided to do something about it. And I was like, well, why wouldn't they give it to the Air 4 then, if that's the case?
Yeah.
Like, if it was just backlash, A14 chip is probably capable of handling it. It's not really that different from an A12X. They have the same amount of RAM. They have the same... iPad Air 4 practically is just an iPad Pro without ProMotion. Like, for all intensive purposes, it's basically just a scaled-down iPad Pro. But the chip is still very capable, so...
Right.
I think they're just picking their battles. I think they're just trying to figure out which things they could win and lose, or what things they can give and what things they can take. And with the iPad, they're seeing that they can't really take much anymore. They're going to have to give a little bit more. And along with Randy's statement, it's kind of hard because the iPad is that weird middle ground where you could easily adopt a lot of iOS features into it, and it would work perfectly fine. And the same with the Mac lineup as well. Mac OS, you could easily get a lot of those features and put onto the iPad, but they're not. So you're kind of in this awkward middle ground of, well, what do we give it to make it a little bit more unique? And I think that pit of ideas has run dry. And so now they're just kind of clamoring to see what money can we get out of this product line until we have to do something that is going to cost us a bunch. And I think they're at the end of the line now where
it may be.
they got nothing else really to show for it, or at least they're holding back greatly on it, so that they're going to get a whole bunch of adoption next year. But I don't see why they would put so much faith on that when they could get a bunch of money this year. But maybe that's the reason why they're like, oh, only M1. So I don't know. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place with the iPad, because it's right in that fine line where if you go one way, you could easily get lost in the iOS features, and if you go the other way, you could easily just make it a touchscreen iMac. And I don't think they want either of those. They want the iPad to be something specific, but it's missing out on a lot of features that could make the iPad a whole lot better.
I want to put a tinfoil hat on for a second.
I keep on meaning to get tinfoil in this room.
Me too. Every time I want to do this, like I actually want to be like, all right, guys, and now it's part of the show where we put this on. We're gonna do this. We're gonna make this happen.
We gotta do it.
I feel Mike kind of slightly alluded to this, and I actually think there's some truth behind it. I think they're purposely holding off on something. So these iPads have been stagnant because we're waiting, and now we break out the tinfoil hat. I think every iPad, M1 or A or M chip or A chip, every iPad that has LiDAR is going to be the only compatible iPad going forward. At some point in the next year or two, if we are expecting some headset, if we're expecting some augmented glasses, if we're expecting, I suspect where iPad will regain dominance and relevance in a Apple ecosystem is that you need to have an iPad with LiDAR that's done literally nothing hardware-wise up until this point, that they're waiting on the right timing, and it could be because they have to bring a new OS to the ecosystem here. But I think iPad is purposely taking backseat until it can be a companion app with the whole ecosystem. So anything that runs off of the iCloud account, anything that has LiDAR will work with this next thing going forward. And you can use iPad at this point to become more of the local hub, whether you're playing your video games and then that's your base that's working off of, or whether it's meant to be the source of projecting information. And with that LiDAR, think how iPhone is being the camera for macOS Ventura, and how like the macOS is the hub for me, but now I can work off of this thing, which because of LiDAR I was able to do a little bit more focusing, show you guys up close the foam tip thing, and it's just it's not life changing, but there's a level of convenience that's happening with this synergy between two different hardwares and their softwares respectively. I think iPad is going to play a role in that, and also iPhone. I think iPhone, anything with LiDAR, I think is going to play a role in this next thing that Apple's working on. And I think when it's announced, inevitably with a major OS update, so some dub, anything that does not have LiDAR is now deemed as obsolete to get X features. Meaning iPad Pro will now be actually Pro, and your Mini or your Air is just there as a standalone device for you to take note-taking with your Apple Pencil or what have you. Then that's that. Break it out, Mike. There it is. It's standalone thing.
It doesn't need to be anything more.
Yeah, exactly. But iPads that me and Drew have will become obsolete. Maybe still get software updates, but maybe not. It becomes obsolete in the sense that it's Pro, but in what sense? And now it doesn't actually communicate with the ecosystem the same way anymore. And I think everything with LiDAR is working towards this inevitable next big, here is now our metaverse thing. Ta-da! And then that's where we go into the Appleverse, where you can watch Apple TV
core.
Plus with this on, and now you're watching your show and you're not bothering the household with your spatial audio customized thing. Yeah. Get your AirPods Pro too.
Interesting.
I feel like tinfoil. Okay, now we can take it off, but that's. I feel like we are purposely. iPad is holding off for some reason, and I think it's because if it has to stand alone about something, that's the only thing. And I only say that because otherwise it's been a waste of time with this LiDAR and buying iPad Pros that have no Pro features.
It's an interesting theory. I can't visualize why the glasses or headset would need a separate device with their own LiDAR sensor. That's what I just can't wrap my head around.
There are VR systems that require satellite sensors placed around your room for specific uses or specific games.
Mapping.
So that way you could define the space. Yeah.
But those aren't the same kind of... They don't have the same range or depth that the iPad LiDAR has. It's not... iPad LiDAR is pretty narrow.
No, but there could be a scanning thing, kind of like what the Oculus Quest does.
Yes.
Where you put it on and you walk around and you can define a space and it remembers.
That's
that
exactly
space.
what I was thinking about. That's
It's
why
exactly
I thought, like,
the same.
you use
with,
that,
like,
you pick it
having
up,
the glasses,
and you map it, and you walk
and basically
around
what
and
you do
it
is
maps.
in doing that you could accomplish a lighter design with the AR glasses or VR glasses, wherever they go with, because then it doesn't have to have all that computing in it to define the space. That's all handled with the iPad LiDAR and the iPad software or the hardware. And the
That
software
wouldn't be in real time. It would be a one-time map, right?
And that's the same with what Quest does, is it's a one-time map. And then it just remembers that map. And then...
But they still have sensors for real time, like to make sure you
There
don't
is those
run
as
into
well.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this would be like the augmented version of that. So this would be more like a Quest rather than a Vive, where I believe the Vive requires the satellite sensors placed around the room. This would be kind of like the Quest, where it's like you could take it anywhere. You don't have to have this whole setup connected to a computer and all that. It's all done through the cloud. And all you have to do is just grab your iPad with the LiDAR sensor and the specific app that's only available on iPad. And then you just walk around to find the space. And then it through the iCloud, it remembers that space and you're done. All you have to do is put on the glasses and you get to enjoy your interior design app thing or play Beat Saber or whatever.
Yeah, I was looking at my closet right now. I see it in the tote. I was like, I have my Quest somewhere, and I haven't broken it out since I've moved. But I guess I don't game like that. But what Mike is saying, that's exactly like I didn't want to be so direct with it, but I'm thinking exactly like how current.
It's okay, Randy.
AR.
I'll be direct.
All right, yeah, I was thinking like the Quest. You use the iPad in the sense that like it helps you map the room for your space for your plane. If Apple is still going all in on this whole services industry, and like I don't see why they wouldn't do their own version of. I mean, they already got Apple Arcade, right? So I don't see why they wouldn't take on their own adaptation of like Steam or what's Google's thing? Nvidia.
Well, there's the
Stadia.
Play Store.
Stadia,
Something
which
like
they
that.
just shut
dead.
down.
I know, but that's that Google. What have Google not killed off? But Hangouts, Google
It was
Plus.
the most
Pixel.
predictable thing. The day they announced it, I was like, well, that's dying
Yeah.
at
Of
some
course.
point. Like,
It's-
of course it is. It's
And
Google.
it's always ahead
This
of its
survives.
time. Yeah.
Ugh.
They are always. I give Google kudos for at least trying, but I always see it like this is ahead of its time. And the Google Glass was the most like, yep, that's not going to last. That's ahead of its time. But now, 10 years later, we're trying to do it again. But having the ability to have your room or your whatever location you're at, and you can take it with you, and it's mobile in the sense that wherever you go, as long as the iPad is with you in the sense, and it could be iPhone as well, but I'm trying to find a case for iPad here. You're able to map out your surroundings to make this now project the information that you wanted to project or play the game that you want to play. Then it could be a net win for something that I still think is kind of gimmicky. It may very well for a few years be exactly like Stage Manager, where it's like, okay, it's an option, it's there, but I don't know. I'm not really like all in on it. I use it, but I'm not married to it, the idea of it. Or it'd be 10 years or 12 years like the iPad and you won't even see any updates to it the same way there's no calculator app. So, roll the dice, I guess. It's weird.
My prediction is I partially agree that I think they're holding off on doing anything meaningful with the iPad for a while, but I don't think it's because they're prepping it for glasses or headset or something. I think it's because they want the Mac to be in the limelight right now. They want the Mac to have all the attention because that's getting this big transition, and Apple probably knows this is the last big transition the Mac's ever going to have because they're not going to leave Apple Silicon. They're not going to go back to Intel. They're not going to go back to AMD. Like, that ship has sailed at this point. It would be so like humiliating to go up on stage and say we're going to stop using our own silicon. Like, even if Intel started beating them, even if AMD started outperforming Apple Silicon, I don't see Apple going back because it would just be, yeah, they've partnered before, but they would have to admit that their own silicon isn't as good as someone else's, which I don't think they would ever do, even if it was true. I don't think they would admit it. And I think that because they know this is the last big chapter of the Mac, they're like, let's go all out right now. Let's give them the ports. We're giving them the ProMotion. We're giving them the mini LED, the big battery lives. We'll give them the keyboard they want. You know, they're just loving up the Mac line right now, making it as cool as they can. They're listening more than they've ever listened with the Mac Studio, and the Mac Pro is probably going to be this crazy powerhouse of a chip with maybe some aspects of modularity. So they're just like, let's let this be Mac.
Fix the mouse, please.
The Mac's.
That's my only request right now.
That would be good too.
Fix the magic mouse.
I wish.
But yes, I agree. There's definitely a lot of attention towards Mac, and it is basically the decade of the Mac right now, which I think, or maybe half decade, but at least it deserves it. It's definitely
in season.
Yes,
it's a good time. It's ripe.
It's all the rage.
I like all of those analogies you just did.
Yeah. The Macintosh is in full bloom. And I think that Apple, if you go back through their history, they're constantly not always trying to just diversify what's selling the best. They're constantly trying to figure out what's going to kill our best-selling product. That was what kind of pioneered the iPhone launch, was because they knew that the iPod's time was finite. They were like, the iPods are bread and butter. This is selling really, really well. Everybody loves this. But smartphones are coming. Smartphones are getting better. Smartphones are going to start having music. They even partnered with a company and brought iTunes to a phone. So I think Steve Jobs and lots of people, it wasn't just him, lots of people at Apple had the foresight to think, in the long run, music players and phones are going to merge. So we better step up. We better start making our own phone that can do iPod things but also do phone things. And that was smart because, yes, the iPhone did cannibalize the iPod, but it costs so much more, and there's a lot more revenue when you're replacing camera, a phone, an internet, all that. $500, they were right.
Are you getting it?
By going in that direction, yeah, they had a lot more success. So my long-term big picture dilemma here is that Apple wants...
Is that the theme for today, Drew?
That's the theme for today.
For this week.
Big picture
I'm
thinking.
okay with it, yeah. I'm fine with that.
Apple wants the Mac to have all the attention right now so that we all upgrade, right? We buy our Mac Studios, we buy our MacBook Pros, we all buy the latest and greatest Mac because, honestly, they are great deals, and there's really nothing like them right now. There's not any other computer I would rather use. There's no computer that would fit my workflow or lifestyle better. So we all buy it, and we're happy with it. And on the side, yeah, we're still complaining. I don't like my iPad anymore. The iPad's stupid. And we're justified with that. But now that the Mac lineup is almost done with this whole transition, we're coming up probably within the next 12 months. We'll be done. We'll have our Mac Pro.
Famous last
Intel
words.
will be dead. What's that?
Famous last words. The Intel Mac Mini stays for another 2 years.
No!
And the Mac Pro still doesn't come.
They're just trying to justify it for all the people who bought the Mac Pros but were still outbeaten by the Mac Studio and like Marquez is I use him as my, like, all right, what's he using right now? If he's not using the Mac Pro, ain't nobody using the Mac Pro.
You know we're going to get 3 comments. There's still some companies that use software that's not on our... Adapt for ARM. What the heck are these companies doing if they haven't figured out that there's a transition going on? And if
it's been 2 years.
Convert your app to support for Apple Silicon, that you won't have to buy a $50,000 computer, and instead you can buy an $8,000 computer. There's reasons to switch to ARM, people. It's not just, we haven't got to that yet. Anyway,
Yeah.
Once this whole Mac transition is complete, I think the Mac line will start to feel a lot more stagnant. It'll start to feel more M2 chippy, you know. Oh, yeah, a little faster. Yeah, it throttles a little bit. And the next MacBook Pros will look the same. They'll just be 18% faster, and we'll be like,
Then a chip
all right.
3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, they might do that, actually. You're right. Like the iPhone, they compare it to the chip from several generations, not the last one. This new MacBook Pro is so much faster than the MacBook Pro we made 14 years ago. You know, like they try
God,
to
I
make
hope
it
so.
seem like a big deal. And I think that I think that once that time comes and the Mac line is kind of done and matured and stagnant, that's when they'll be like, what's going to kill the Mac? What's going to come along? Just like the iPhone came along and killed the iPod. I think they'll know that, like, well, 2-in-1s are where the future is. iPad's doing more Mac-like things. And I hope they come to the same conclusion I came to, which is just that, like, Macs can serve their purpose for people that don't need touch or don't need a stylus or don't need something so versatile. They just want a keyboard, trackpad. That's enough for them. Those will still be cheaper, and I don't think iPads that start to replace your Mac will be more affordable than a Mac. Just like the iPhone was more expensive than the iPod, I think that's when we could see the rise of the 2-in-1 and the iPad starting to get more Mac functionality, either through macOS or through bringing more Pro apps or bringing more Pro functionality. Once that is all complete, it'll make sense to be like, okay, everyone's bought their Mac, let's make them all buy iPads now. Because they'll be like, oh, crap. That's really cool. I wish my Mac could do that, but it can't. But if I spend a little bit more, I can get an iPad that does all the cool iPad stuff with the rear cameras and accelerometers, gyroscopes, and biometrics, and it has an Apple Pencil. Plus, I can dock it and do everything a Mac can. It's just going to cost you more. And they're waiting for the market to be ripe. And I think they're like, well, if we tried to do 2-in-1s now, it would be too much going on at once. It would be like, okay, here's all the iPads are getting all this love and attention, and the Mac, so what do I buy? Which do I do? I think the Mac will still serve a purpose. It will still have functionality. It's not like iPads will kill them off, but they will get the love and attention they deserve in time. It's just Apple's waiting strategically for us to all buy new Macs.
Hopefully it doesn't bud into or transition into what happened with the iPod, where it just slowly gets phased out, and then one day it's like, oh, there goes the iPads. Now we just have the iPhone and the Mac and all the other home accessories. I don't know. Maybe the future of the iPad is actually as a home accessory, and maybe that's where it's just destined to go. It turns into
It should be
a HomePod with a screen, and that's it. And honestly, if it does, okay. If that means that they couldn't figure out a way to make a better 2-in-1 or integrate macOS or iOS into the iPad, so be it. It just means that Mac and the iPhone get a lot more cool features that the iPad used to have.
And I believe I agree with that, because that makes sense as a market for the iPad to serve. It's just weird that in the latest iPadOS they removed the option for the iPad to be a hub for the smart home. They used to let it be a hub for smart devices and stuff, and they were like, no, let's get rid of that. And I was like,
well, they've taken away legacy ports before and they've brought them back. I wouldn't say
they could.
They're bringing back the
it just
hub
doesn't
feature, but
it doesn't show much of a long-term vision with that. Like, if that is the plan, they're not acting on it now. They might come back to it.
What are they acting on right now?
I don't know why they feel the need to remove things. You can't even add anything to iPad. What can we get rid of? How do we make this worse? Oh, they don't like the home view with the time and the widgets on the home screen? Okay, let's get rid of that.
Greatest thing ever. I missed that.
Pinned the Today View. They got rid of the Today View on the home screen.
It's now a yesterday view.
So I don't think iPad will get the same fate as iPod, because iPad is still the best-selling tablet, and people who need or want tablet iPad is just efficient. It's still efficient. It's just not optimized, which is, it feels almost like a paradox. The iPad, I agree with the long-term trajectory you're putting out there, Drew. I feel like, let Mac shine right now as it should, because it's going through.
Let him have his fun.
It's going through its transition again. It's being the Mac it was born to be, not the one it was assigned. And I think that iPad will also have its time to shine again. But I'm not asking for Mac like optimization right now. I'm just asking for a proper like UI cleanup. And if that means that you want it, I say you as in like Apple, because I know you're listening. Hi, Apple. You guys wanted iPadOS to stand out as a standalone OS, as iPadOS, not iOS anymore. And yet the coding is still the same. Like it's the same management system, file management. That's not really there. It's not. My test is when I'm able to actually properly export music, these MP3s, and I can have multiple of them on my desktop, or because I don't even have a desktop. That's the thing. Like, it needs to have like a local area. Call it whatever you want, but not the home screen. It needs to have a local area where you can move all file types, not just MP3s, PDFs, JPEGs, PNGs, even applications if you needed it to be.
Airport.
Airport. Give me the ability to move those icons in a way that streamlines my workflow, where if I can pull a folder, and make this folder be this is my dedicated when I'm streaming folder, this is my dedicated when I'm doing music folder, like having things like that, and whatever's in those folders, to me, because that's how I have macOS optimized, and I treat it as a computer. There's nothing the iPad does that the iPhone can't do, and there's only things that iPhone can do better that the iPad doesn't even have yet. And if you say, oh yeah, but we have the stylus, like that's just another option. If you're gonna tell me you use Scribble and that was your defining feature, that is not a iPad Pro exclusive. That is on everything that has an Apple Pencil and iOS 15. You want to scribble or take note taking, but it's just one version of. You could use your finger if you wanted to be, so pure about it. Be like Steve Jobs. Who wants a stylus? Yeah. You could use your finger if you wanted to, and I can do that on the phone.
They call themselves Apple sheep.
Yeah, I know.
Using a stylus.
So I just want a rework. It's weird because like this hasn't even happened with iOS. iOS hasn't been redesigned, but maybe it doesn't need to be redesigned. But the feeling that you kind of when you got that euphoric, like, ooh, when iOS 7 first came out, iPad needs their iOS 7 moment where it's like we're redesigning from the ground up, and they changed how the control center were, and everything just became an iteration on top of that. And that's what iPad needs. It needs its moment to have its re-engineered, with bugs and all included, just rework it from the ground up about how things are interacted with and utilized, and make it more, I don't know, make it I want, this is my test to Apple. I want Apple to tell me what is an iPad.
It's not a computer.
It's not a computer, and it's not an
what is
iPhone. So what is an iPad? I want Apple to tell me what an iPad. It's a great note-taking touch display with stylus. But what is it? You're telling me things that it does. What is it? I could tell you what an iPhone is.
It does.
It's a camera first. An iPhone is a camera first. Change my mind. I could tell you what a MacBook is. That is the window to the soul of the digital world. Like, you need. The MacBook is the most important product that's out there for people who do this line of work. But an iPad, what's an iPad? What's it supposed to be? If Apple can do that whole Steve Jobs articulate in such a way vision to me, because even then, I wasn't sold on iPad in 2010. 2011 when he came on stage and he was like, we found the middle ground of something between a notebook and an iPhone, or a notebook and a MacBook, and we think we found this tablet. Like, I wasn't sold then, and not because of the software limiting issues, though it was a little bit that. I was just like, but what it like? I see what we're doing, but what you have to sell me on it. The same the whole thing we were talking about last week about Drew not upgrading but not just showing up, but like every year. And I was like, okay, sell me on it. Sell me this pen. Sell me this Apple Pencil. Sell me on it. I don't think I've ever actually had a proper case of being sold on the iPad. I bought the 2018 iPad Pro because I had now naively believed that we were going to actually get something exclusive to be considered a proper Pro because of the full screen display and it's the everything about the redesign was like, this makes sense about why I could do those things. And they're bringing Thunderbolt now, so I could put it to a screen. Come on now, like that. Like to me, that like I thought we were future proofing something. We were saying it for years. Me, Drew, and Nick were saying we're future proofing this iPad. We don't need to upgrade. We're future proofing. I bought the bigger storage configuration because I was future proofing this thing. I'm gonna buy the keyboard because I'm future proofing. It's all about the drop, and here it is, iPad 15. Oh, iPadOS 16. Oh, like iPadOS 15 broke my heart. At that point, I was like, yeah. So now, like here it is, the sunset. Another SpongeBob reference.
I mean, at least you have a very beautiful, what's it called, hard drive that you can store files on.
That I do.
It's a beautiful SSD. True. Yeah. Gorgeous. Yeah, I played around with Stage Manager after I posted the video on it for the rest of the day, or a couple hours after that video, and it's kind of neat. I found it fairly confusing and kind of clunky, which was surprising to me compared to most Apple experiences. They're usually fairly intuitive, and this is like, you go into Control Center, you add it there, and then you activate it, and then you have these apps, and they're not infinitely resizable, but they're kind of resizable. So you have to like get them to
choose
overlap the right. Yeah, it wasn't super intuitive to me, but once I got the apps laid out in a way that I liked, I had something that I didn't have before, which was 3 apps, basically.
I loved really your layout, by the way. If the layout is what you showed on the video, and I'm not saying this to embellish anything, to a T, that's exactly how I was using Stage Manager for the Mac. I don't know if you're being intentional about what complementary apps were paired with one another, but that is exactly the layout that I would go with.
Was it basically Reddit and Discord and Twitter together?
No.
And then
no.
YouTube, Twitter, Discord.
Okay.
And then iMessage and Safari.
And Drew basically did what the iPhone lock screen could be like. He customized each grouping as its own dedicated, like, this is when I'm working, this is when I'm this is leisure, this is when I'm checking work, like email, like work not from like YouTube, but emails.
It was almost like different focuses, but for the iPad.
Yes, each grouping he had served its purpose that actually correlate with one another for whatever he would be doing at that time. And I was like, that's that. So his email was paired properly, Twitter was paired properly, his YouTube and Safari, like all of them were properly paired for, if I'm going to use this right now, this is what my attention is going to be on, while also having it off to the side to check on the other stuff. And I was like, I like that layout. That was a good layout. So I didn't mean, I didn't mean to interrupt. That was just cool.
No, we interrupt all the time. Yeah. It's three apps basically in split screen is what it felt like, with a lot of excess padding that didn't need to be there. But I was like, okay, I couldn't run 3 apps equally spaced out, not covering up each other on old iPadOS. So that's what I say to those who say Stage Manager doesn't matter unless you have external monitor support. It's like, no, this is a use case you didn't have before. Like on this iPad, you can't run 3. Before we couldn't run 3 apps simultaneously, and that was kind of nice to be like, I'm checking Discord, I'm checking Twitter, and I'm looking at YouTube. And you can do picture in picture, but with the whole app open, you have your recommended videos there, You have the comments there, so you don't have to leave your old apps to go to YouTube. It's all just, it basically was the equivalent of 3 Max iPhones next to each other. That's what it felt like. Just having like 3 iPhones with each their own apps. And I was like, huh, this is kind of neat. But funny story, I was like managing Stage Manager and, as
Managing
one
the
does.
manager.
As
Going
one
back.
does.
Assistant to the Stage Manager. And I was jumping between the side apps, and Louise walked in because she heard me come home from my service appointment, but that's for another day. But I came back in a hurry because I was like, honey, I need to make a video about something quick. It's because, we were wanting to go somewhere, but I said, this is time sensitive, like this is relevant, like kind of breaking news, because everyone was like, Drew, they added Stage Manager. I was like, honey, I need to do this right now. So she was like, okay, go ahead, that's fine. So I did the video and I posted it, and while I was posting it, I updated the iPad, and she came home and I was testing it on the kitchen table, and she was like, what's that? And I was like, this is the new feature, which they said wouldn't come to this iPad, and then they decided to add it. And she was like, this is for people with ADHD or something. She was like, it's too busy. There's so much stuff going on the screen. She was like, oh, that looks so cluttered. And she couldn't stand it. She didn't like it at all.
I love it.
She's like, you have too much going on your display. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of busy. And, I did that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to use it.
I have no problem with the option being there. There's no problem. Like, from the beginning, when they first unveiled Stage Manager, said, I don't think that's very useful. I don't see myself using that. I'm not saying I wish my iPad had it. I'm just saying their excuse that the A12X chip can't handle it is bullcrap. That's where I was upset.
Yeah.
That's where I was like,
Sure.
I don't want it, but don't say I can't have it.
But you can run a Mac Mini using this chip, but no,
yeah,
you
A12Z chip can run a whole Mac.
can run a whole Mac. Yeah.
A12Z can't handle one little multitasking menu.
Not
So
possible.
since then, that was Tuesday, I think.
Yeah.
Since then, I used it for a couple hours, recorded the little short and posted it. And I was like, okay, we won.
We
The
won.
war is over. Put the iPad down. Haven't touched it since.
We solved
Yeah.
world
Haven't had a
hunger.
desire to.
We fixed cancer, cured AIDS, solved world hunger.
We did it.
We won.
But I saw a lot of the comments, and the more I thought about it, the more I agreed. At first I was like, well, they don't have Thunderbolt, so maybe that's why they don't get external monitor support. But people were like, yeah, but that USB-C port can handle like 10 gigabits a second. That's not a good excuse. So
I agree.
and people saying the A14 chip should be able to handle it are probably right as well. But that reinforced my belief that this was financially motivated. But there were some even people saying I want it on my Mini, so I wanted to get Mike's impression. Do you think you would use Stage Manager if you had it on your Mini?
No. I briefly showed on the video portion of the podcast, if you were watching on YouTube, the split view that I had going on between a comic and a drawing. I never use that unless, like, I don't know. The only times I use, like, sometimes, like, a split view or whatever is, I think, when I'm trying to do a spreadsheet on the iPad through Excel or numbers or something like that. And even then, on the other one, it's, like, either Zillow or finances, bank information, or something else. Otherwise, no. I don't think I'd ever really use it on the Mini, but I'm not the person who... I'm probably not that audience. I know, like I said before, there is an audience for that, maybe. I'm not that. And it's, like you said, it's good to have options. I support the option, even though the option's not on the Mini. Could the Mini probably run it? Yes. Would I use it? No. Do I think all iPads should be able to do it? Yes. Or at least most current gen iPads, or at least like maybe
I would
not
say
current
like,
gen, but like in the last like 3 or 4 years, it shouldn't be.
A14 and up. I don't understand why they can't.
It shouldn't
the
be an
cheaper
issue.
iPads can't. Yeah.
We have the computation power. We have the technology.
We have technology.
You know what's interesting? I just realized why I wouldn't use Stage Manager. I've been conditioned to use the iPad a certain way. No matter how many times I try to, hey, multiple apps are here, I've still been conditioned to emphasize a focus on one thing at a time with the iPad, and that conditioning is years and years in the making. And for me to move away from that, I would take Luis's stances like this feels noisy. There's a lot going on in a way that I'm not going to... That condition...
In order to properly utilize it, it has to look noisy. That's
right.
the thing. Like, for the demo, for the video, you have to put a bunch of apps there. So you're like, see, it's working. I'm switching between. But that's really not how most of us use our... Like Mike just admitted. Like, that's not really how I use my iPad. I don't need 4 apps going simultaneously. You kind of do kind of pick your battles. And
I don't even
think
use
split
Mac
screen
that
is
way.
more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mac, like... Again, this goes back to, like, if we're going to adopt things from the Mac, like, I don't even use the Mac that way. My guilty clutter lies within Safari tabs, not applications.
It sounds like
okay.
a great TV show name. My Guilty
That's
Clutter.
interesting.
My guilty clutter. Yeah,
I'm the opposite, I think.
You
I
have
will just leave, like, all my apps open and forget that they're open and just on top
No,
of each
that's
other.
a pet
But
peeve.
I do not.
Things. Only keep things
I
open.
do
that you
not
need to
have
deal
more
with.
than 4 tabs going. Like, if there's a 5th tab, I have to start getting rid of stuff.
Oh, I got like 10
cannot
tabs.
take
Wait,
tabs.
let me see. One. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 tabs. Yeah.
Well, to me, like, the most efficient way to navigate apps has always just been, like, I go down to the dock and I click the one I need to use. It's not some, like, big multi-gesture or swipe to a different desktop or, I don't need all these animations. I'm just like, I want Discord, click, boom, it jumps to the front. I want Twitter, boom, it jumps to the front. That's usually, or I put them next to each other, so like right now, I can see OBS settings, it tells me it's recording, and I can see you guys. So they're kind of layering in that way, but I can't do that on the iPad in the first place. So the idea of overlapping apps, to me, it still feels like Apple's treating the iPad like a toy, where they're like, see, does the little iPad have windowed multitasking? Yeah,
Yes,
see,
Windows.
I have...
Yes, Windows.
You have
You can
windowed
take a
apps,
picture,
just like a grown-up. You don't... Can we get
The
Xcode on the
colorful
iPad?
phone. Yeah.
That's it.
The cow
like
goes moo.
Randy just leaked iPadOS 17. It's just they redesigned all of iPadOS to just be the dial.
Can you say cock-a-doodle-doo? Yeah.
It's going to be like the Mach-E. Instead of a knob on it, it's got a pull string that comes out of it.
the digital string. What do they call that? The
There's a
dynamic
snake
pulse.
in my boot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, they own
that's what it
Pixar,
feels
yeah.
like. Everyone was saying, "Please give us Xcode. Can we please get Xcode on the iPad?" And they said, "You get Swift Playgrounds." After that, what do they do the next year? I really want Final Cut. You get iMovie Diaper Edition. You get,
It reminds me of your WatchOS skit. Cycle tracking.
Yeah. Cycle track.
Okay.
I'd probably give that to the iPad next. But
Gives it WatchOS features before it gives it iOS.
not
or
optimized
macOS.
battery charging or the
Cycle
calculator, but
tracking,
cycle
even though it's
track.
called temperature, like, they use it for temperature stuff instead. All that's on the Apple Watch Ultra. Everything that was announced for the 8 is on the Ultra. And yet they had no
Pretty
interest
much.
in talking about this temperature monitoring kind of because, what, you don't want to tell me about my cycle while I'm climbing the Alps?
No, they don't.
Now
bring that
is
up.
the perfect
not
time to have a kid. What?
Babe, stop what you're doing right here, right
That
now.
would be a great reveal. They get to the top of Mount Everest and they check
I'm pregnant.
ovulation.
The-
You
the-
can check your ovulation status in the middle of Nepal.
I guess since we're getting into it, how has the Ultra been in the week that you've owned it, Drew?
Oh, we're going there, huh?
Yes, we are.
Um,
I need to know.
yeah, it's big.
I mean, I've seen it in person as well when I was getting
yeah.
the things
I
checked
think-
out. I wore it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I would definitely rock it. And of course,
Okay.
my wife Carrie's like, no. I'm like, okay.
No,
I haven't
I
seen
agree
it
with
in
her.
person yet.
Don't throw
is
don't
beautiful.
throw Carrie under the bus. She's not wrong.
No.
'cause
This is all valid because, I mean, I bought a new computer and a whole
And a
bunch
new
of other
monitor.
stuff and a new monitor. Yeah,
And a new phone.
I don't
And a
need
new
anything
phone.
else. I don't need anything else.
And a
it's
new
totally
car.
valid.
Keyboard.
Her criticizing of my spending habits is totally valid for the next 2 years.
Even the Apple Card is like,
She loves her Apple
Okay.
Card. But anyways, is it? Are you feeling
it's very
like
yellow.
Are you bumping it into things a lot more because it's so big?
Yeah, that was something that I was like, well, it's just a watch. But once, like the first day I wore it, I banged it against like 3 doorways. I didn't think that. No, literally, like just casual usage. And I know I'm not the target audience, so please, before all of the people that panic to Randy's tweet come commenting on this podcast, I know I am not the target demographic of the Apple Watch Ultra. I'm going to say some not nice things about it. That doesn't mean it's a bad product. That doesn't mean no one should buy it. I'm just saying I am not the outdoorsy adventurer guy that
Well,
goes
Drew, it
and-
sounds like you're a useless piece of crap. That's what they're going to tell you on Twitter.
You can't afford it.
My comment the past week has been if you don't buy something or if you don't keep something that I like, that means you're poor.
I
That's
love
been
it.
the most hilarious
I saw it.
recurring.
Can
Look
you
at-
please just
look at
say
the
you don't
background.
have
It's not
money?
all white. Yeah.
This is why I'm poor, because I bought this, right?
I don't know.
But-
If you were poor, it would look worse.
Yeah, it's just like, first of all, no. But second of all, if I was, you shouldn't go there. What if someone was like, I really like the 14, but I want to afford rent this month, so I think I'm going to prioritize rent. And you were like,
Man, you're
So
one
you're
pathetic
poor, huh?
loser.
how dare you pay for rent? Oh my God, you're poor. Like, it kills me that people bring that up. But anyway,
Apples love Apple's life.
Says the
Put
people
on the
who
Ultra.
live at home. Don't have to worry about it. And like, you're poor.
right, I'm very poor.
The
So-
power of Apple compels you.
Yeah, stand back, broke boys. But I put it on and instantly was like noticing I would walk through a doorway and just clunk, and I was like, and it's durable. I'll give it that. No scratches, no scuffs, no nothing. This thing can take a beating. And I've seen some of the durability performance of the Ultra versus the older Apple Watches, and man, it is by far the most durable watch they've ever made. So hats off to that. But it immediately, when I put it on, just feels bulkier, takes up more space,
Wide Drew
and
happens. He just becomes wider.
Chonk Drew.
I'm sorry.
chonk drew. Yes,
I'll stop
this is the
derailing.
chonk watch. Now, I did not say when I reviewed the Series 7, this is my last Apple Watch for a while. So the gates were open for the sell me on this watch. Like,
Yeah.
Apple could convince me, I could decide, yeah, I actually want to keep this. That was not off the table with this watch. And once I got it, the main thing I was interested in, I was like, okay, I don't really have a need for an action button. It's kind of cool that it's there, but I don't need one. And I don't need the dual GPS tracking or any of that fancy, but I don't do deep sea diving. I'm sorry. But what could I utilize on the Ultra? You guys are so funny.
Just thinking about the area that you're in. Ah, yes. Deep sea diving. I do it every day.
Why don't you go deep sea diving?
Looks
That's
at
what you
dried
should
up
do.
river nearby. No, this is
Tries
perfect.
to dive. Yeah, I honestly at this time of year, I'm not even
Crash
swimming.
impact instead. Are you okay?
Yeah, crash
all
detection.
wrong.
You land on the bottom of a cliff. It sounds like a car crash. Yeah.
That was the perfect time to have kids.
Guess what? Now you're ready to have it. You're ready. You're ovulating.
Ovulation track started. Yeah. This is,
No Apple Watch. I just fell.
no, I just fell. That's fall detection kicking in. But
Oh.
what could I appreciate was what I was asking myself. As a casual watch wearer, what could I appreciate? And I was like, the size. I like big screens.
Yeah.
I like having more text in the QWERTY keyboard being easier to write on. And I like having better battery life. Who doesn't like better battery life? Why not? Just take advantage of that. And once I got it and started using it and setting it up, something that Daniel Holloway brought up as well that became really obvious when I started using it was, even though it's 49 millimeter, the screen is not actually bigger. Like, in order to accommodate for the old watch bands, they had to curve the corners quite a bit. And because of those exaggerated corners of the display, you're not getting like more screen real estate compared to a Series 7. Everyone loves to compare it to the 8. The 8 is dead in my view. Don't buy the 8, just get the 7. So when I compare it to the 7, I'm like, even though the watch is bigger, you have so much extra titanium padding, plus the flat titanium is on the front now. It's no longer this glass to metal transition. And then you have extra flat bezel on top of that. There's a lot of padding. And it's durable, so I get why they did that. That's fine. But if you're just talking about like as a daily watch wearer, it's not adding anything. It's not like you can read more. Even when I put the text down to the smallest setting, you're not getting more information than what you had on a Series 7. So sure, if you measure the resolution, I'm sure the display is a little bit bigger, but the corners kind of eat into any of that added benefit. So I was unimpressed with the fact that the screen doesn't really grant much more, other than it's brighter. It's cool that it gets really bright. So happy that that's there. But, you know, I've been working out with it. I ran with it 3 times this week, and it's impressive how light it is for its size. They were very smart to go with titanium. Like, you can't do that, Mike. You can't. You can't just casually drop memes in the chat and expect me to just keep talking.
That's what I'm saying. It's distracting. That jawline.
Yeah. Just
This week is the week of me distracting people in the middle of their sentences.
he's just
But
throwing me off now.
I could not
But yeah,
stop.
that's what I looked like. Mike got a picture of me working out. Apple Watch Ultra enjoyer. Yeah. I tried the
Drew, I
siren
didn't
feature
know.
once.
Why do you have a foot-long neck?
I don't know. It's up there.
Things up tight as
Dynamic
stone.
neck.
It's so distracting. I can't even look at it. Okay.
But I don't like having a crown guard. I'll say that.
Ooh.
You have to use the digital crown more on the front. And I didn't know this until I tried the Apple Watch Ultra. I often use the crown from the top, like this end.
Yep.
When I move the crown, I grab it from the top and then spin it that way. And you can't really do that as easily because it's covered up with the crown guard, which protects it, and for the market it serves, it's fine. But for just me, going from a 7 to the Ultra, I'm worried about getting canceled. It's just like, I reach to move the crown if I'm like adjusting music or something, or to lightly, like I did sleep tracking with it as well. And when you want to you don't want the full display brightness to activate, right? You just want it to get a little bright to see the time and then go back. I would reach and grab for the top, but there's the crown guard there. So it's not spinning. So I have to get used to, and I'm sure anybody could get used to it. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just like, oh yeah, I got to start here from the front this time and scroll forward. So I kind of prefer having the crown exposed. Don't say that, Drew.
He's in his head.
Too late. It's out there now.
Use your imagination.
Drew likes
you know
it
what I was gonna say.
Out and free and ready to mingle.
I like my. There's a more age appropriate. I like my digital crown Commando. How about that? It's like
Commando
it's free. The Commando Pro.
You gotta be careful, Drew. You'll be put on a list with that watch.
Not with that watch.
It's hit things, and if you're asking me, like, did the design?
There's an Audi
grow
and
on
there's an
me?
Innie, and Drew likes an Audi.
It's a belly button. That's what you were comparing.
I was trying to say, yeah, that's right. There's hoods, and then there's.
This is an Innie, and The design hasn't particularly grown on me, but I have gotten used to it over
Yeah.
the last week. It's become the norm, and it feels like my watch now. It works on MagSafe Duo fine. That was a non-issue. But what I will give it a lot of credit for was I charged it to 100% Monday morning. So I took it off the charger at 6:28 in the morning to start working out.
How many seconds? 6:28 and 32.
17.
Okay, thank you. I needed that.
Which I knew. And I took it off the charger, put it on, did not take it off for any reason until 28, which was perfect, p.m. Thursday evening, which was totally
How many
unintentional.
seconds?
I looked 17.
Okay.
Whoa!
I checked the battery percentage, and it was at 1% after 12 plus 30, 48 hours.
Don't look at me.
I think-
I'm not counting any numbers at
72?
this point
I'm looking
in the
at
podcast.
engineer math. Go.
45.
It's 12 hours on top of 36, I think.
That's 48.
Okay, yeah. So 48 hours later, I had not taken the watch off. I did sleep tracking every night, and I exercised with it every morning. And I didn't have always on display on, to be fair, so that may have helped a little bit. But I did choose the time-lapse watch face, which for me has been notoriously the battery drainer, because every pixel is on. Every time you check the time, it shows motion. That is like the most battery, other than maybe the Siri watch face. I know that uses a lot, but it was a very, full screen watch face, and it made it over 45 hours, which I thought was impressive. It's like I've never had an Apple Watch last that long. So I was extremely impressed by that, and the siren is insanely loud.
Good.
Way louder than I would ever want to test. It's hard to test, honestly, because it hurts your ears.
Go jump
So-
into a dried up river and test it.
Underwater siren. See what happens.
Well, I said dried up river, but sure.
Yeah. So I appreciate the battery life. I appreciate the durability, and I think it serves a very decently large market. I think this is a much bigger market than the Apple Watch editions were.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who was buying those. And honestly, what's crazy to think, this watch costs less than my Series 7 did. Like, a 45 millimeter stainless steel is $850, whereas this is $800. So anybody who's thinking of getting a larger non-aluminum watch should heavily consider,
So that
will you utilize battery life?
ooh.
Like,
I didn't even
and
think
do you
about
care
that.
about durability? Those are two big important factors for a lot of watch buyers. Is how long does the battery last, because that impacts longevity, how long you can own the watch. And also, like, people like my dad, they like having a watch, but he breaks them. He drops them when he's taking off the band, or he just bumps them against stuff. So he's like broken every watch I've got him so far. And
So
I
I
tried
should
to-
not get a stainless steel Apple Watch regardless. Unless it's a Series 7.
it's a much narrower market now, in my view. Like, now the people, it does feel weird, the idea that you would pay $50 more for a watch with half the battery life and less durability and less
Sleeker
features,
design. That's so Apple.
But
for a sleeker design, $50 more.
it looks
That's
cool. And I will admit, my Series 7, I haven't put it on in a long time, but it's been sitting on my desk all week, and every time I look at it, I'm like, ooh, that looks slick. That is like a clean look. I haven't fallen in love with this design to be like, this is actually pretty. It's like, no, it's bulky. It's got the bezel. I don't think it's the chassis as much as it is the bezel. Basically, if I could give you a perspective on it, I compared the two. Randy likes little details like this. It's the same thickness of your 13 Pro bezel.
okay. Okay.
If you and it's flat, so
Yeah.
it's a good indication. You put them next to each other, The Ultra and the 13 Pro have basically the same thickness bezel. So if you see the bezel on a 13 and you imagine that on a watch, it's kind of,
So do you think the
a lot of
Apple
padding.
Watch Pro 2 will probably be the best buy for someone who wants to get a Apple Watch or a smartwatch that has the durability?
the Pro 2, do you mean the Ultra 2?
Sorry,
or-
Ultra 2. Did I say
Nec-
Pro 2? The
Yeah.
Apple Watch
Yeah.
Ultra 2. The Pro.
Yeah,
still thinking about the
there's-
leaks.
I'm still not convinced if it'll be refreshed annually. I'm not sure. Like,
I guess that's a bigger question then.
we're early in the process of, I mean, I haven't heard any rumors or leaks for next year's watch yet. So, I mean,
Series
knowing Apple, though, typically they don't change displays year over year.
Right.
They just adopted the Ultra design, so it's most likely going to keep this design for at least another year and mostly be a spec upgrade, maybe with better battery life or a new health sensor, and then maybe the year after they do something. But even like with the Series 4, they kept that for 3 generations, and arguably they're still keeping it with the SE. It's like they keep that stuff around. They don't like, okay, here's the display, next year bigger display, next year bigger display, you know. It's pretty rare. So
Sure.
I'm going to guess the next Ultra won't be that different. I think design-wise it'll be pretty much the same. It will just maybe have improved battery life or better speakers or 5G. I'm surprised they haven't pulled that card for the watch yet.
Right.
But
Satellite.
or satellite communication. Yeah, that would be a good one. You can text from... Now we have no privacy at all. Anywhere you go, the satellites are listening. So, yeah, I think the Series 7 fits me better because I appreciate long battery life, but I don't... It was cool that it lasted that long, but I was like actively choosing to like, oh, I could take it off. I guess I don't need to charge, whatever. What's also funny with watchOS is it's like, in order for sleep tracking to work, your battery needs to be above 25% or something like that. And I was like, why? You're an Ultra. Like, you don't need that. It's still programmed to let me know, you should charge your watch tonight if you're going to track your sleep. And I was like, no.
I
This is
don't.
going to last a whole day and a half.
Yeah, I didn't. And I was at like 25 or 24% or something. And I set it up. It worked fine. I tracked my sleep, went to bed, woke up at like 18%. I was like, why did it tell me? Why did it think it needed to charge? So,
because it was getting your temperatures.
right. It got all my ovulation data.
So
the
for
DLC
you,
driving.
in your specific situation, it makes sense why you're fine with your Series 7 because your Series 7 has the sapphire glass, and you're okay with that. That was important
It's
to
in
you.
pristine condition. There's like
So
no scratches, no scuffs anywhere on that thing. And I love that design still. I still love the Audi digital crown, integrated side button, and the bezel being much, much thinner. Every time I look at the Series 7, I'm like, ooh, wow, that looks so much more... It looks
Wait.
more futuristic, honestly.
every time you look
This
at the
feels
Series,
like...
hang on.
ignoring battery life and
This is you
durability.
every time you
this
look at the
feels,
Series 7.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
Jason Bateman, yeah, or whatever his name.
Christian
Christian
Bale.
Bale.
Jason Bateman. That's American
No,
Psycho.
what Patrick Bateman, the character's name,
Yes.
not the actor.
Jason Bateman.
I was thinking of.
So for your
Uh,
situation, that makes sense. What about my situation, Drew? You blew my mind about the $50 difference. What would someone with me who wants a strong glass? What do I do?
I guess this is the kind of the tricky predicament you find yourself in now. Like, you have to decide between looks, which I don't know. The Ultra would be the easy choice if you like the way it looks. Some people just, I call it ugly.
I haven't
But
seen it
in
in
the best
person. That's
possible
the
way.
thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
But assuming
I will say it in my opinion, unlike a lot of Apple products, it looks better in person than it does on the website. I don't know if Mike agrees with that, but
oh yeah, he's like yeah.
Very.
he's
It looks amazing.
it's one of those
That
watches
was awesome.
that very intelligently they built it to like it looks good outside.
Okay.
Like when I'm running, I'm like, yeah, I got my watch
Look at
tracking
me.
my watt hours and whatever.
Refer to
I'm
the
tracking.
meme that Drew or that Mike showed about Drew. That's Drew when he's running.
No, it's more like his
I feel
left
like-
arm is like that. His right arm is very shrimpy because of how
Yeah.
how big the watch is on the left side.
Yeah, but Drew
Do you
said
Yeah,
the watch
I
is
mean-
very light. He says
Yeah,
It's not heavy, but it's full. It's
yeah, sure.
it's a full bit. It's much bigger than the Series 7, and you'll notice it. And in my experience, it will probably take some you might bump it along things more likely than you would a normal watch. And it's also something I forgot to mention. It's sharp. The lifted part that the titanium goes around the display, that I would say is close to the sharpness of like the display MacBook. The MacBook opening lid part.
Yeah.
It's that kind of sharp. So sometimes if you switch between watch faces or you're activating Control Center and you swipe up, it cuts into the finger a bit more. Whereas on the old watches, it's just a graceful glass rounded.
There within lies the problem. I always said the iPhone 11 Pro was the most comfortable phone I held. I love the mini and the sharp.
And I still think they're going back to that eventually. I think we'll have a few years of squared off edge, and then ultimately I think they'll go back to the 11 style design. And I think it's worth checking out in person when you're getting your AirPods serviced, and also
I like how you just assume I'm going to go get them serviced.
whatever that happens. But you
So put
have to
aesthetic
really
aside.
ask yourself: is the battery life, is that worth it to you? Is having roughly twice the battery life of a regular Apple Watch worth having a good design?
You know how I was talking about the iPad had conditioned me? The watch has conditioned me to just put it on the charger at night. I'm indifferent about it.
Yeah, I'm used to that too.
That sucks,
occasionally
man. Because I'm
tracks-
I'm
track
indifferent
sleep,
about
but-
I'm indifferent about aesthetic because I haven't seen it in person, so I
Okay.
can't make it a comment on that. I'm
Okay.
indifferent about battery for the same reason. I'm not indifferent about the materials used to build it, and it feels like such a practical reasoning that I'm trying to rationalize here. Let me ask you this because I don't know. Is there?
Sorry, Mike. Do you need to go?
I can hang around a little bit.
Okay.
I'll
Before
close.
Randy starts
yeah.
a new question.
No,
Okay.
I'm just I'm closing with this. Is
Okay.
there a Series 7 not certified refurbished, but am I able to still buy a new Series 7 somewhere if that's the route, if it's cheaper?
Yeah, I'm sure somewhere. I mean, I know Apple has refurbished 7s, which are
Wow.
basically new. But Randy doesn't like that, but just tell
No.
yourself it's new.
Okay.
It shows up in the orders page just like anything. But,
Okay.
Yeah, Carrie likes her refurbished Series 5.
oh,
She traded
here's
that
my
as-
exact model. Certified refurbished, graphite, 45 millimeter, $549. So you don't get the ovulation tracking, but
Darn.
it's
He definitely
basically
needed
the
that
same
right
chip, same battery. I think it's a beautiful design, and it doesn't have the great battery of the Ultra or the Siren feature, the car crash.
It doesn't
detection,
matter when
but-
they introduce the low power mode. None of that matters to me when that comes out.
So that's what I'm actually testing right now. So last night the watch died, and I charged it to 100% and started the day with a full charge. And now I'm using a battery friendly watch face, and it's in low power mode. And I've worn it all morning, and I ran with it, and I tracked my workouts, and at this point I am at 98%. So I'm very curious to see how long an Ultra goes at low power mode starting at full. It might go beyond the return window. Who knows? We'll find out. But
Nice.
yeah, it's just, if you're a casual watch wearer, I would say battery life, durability, those are the best perks of the Ultra. The design, you might love it, you might not. It comes down to personal preference. For me, I don't love it. I still think the Series 7 looks cooler, and the battery life's not a huge concern to me, so that's why I'm sticking with the 7. But
All right.
this is a big market. A lot of people, not just adventurers.
Literally.
Yeah. Like, not just people that do deep sea diving. Like, anyone that just wants an Apple Watch that they're not worried about getting scratched or banged up, or wants it to last more than a day or two on a charge, this is a great
I know
buy for
people
that.
who want the biggest watch possible. Like they used to wear the big like circle ones that were like bling almost. Like they like that
Garmin's.
aesthetic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So
Yeah,
there's your answer.
I'm definitely in the. I definitely want one, but
Okay.
I've never really been one for big watches. I always got
Okay.
something sleek. Like even before this watch, I had a. I don't know if I've talked about this on the tech podcast before. I had one where it's basically just lights in a circle, and then it would just, it would fill up to a certain amount
Nice.
for minutes, and then the hour LED would light up to indicate what hour it is. And it was very simplistic, very.
I like that.
What's it called? Modern, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And it's a good color, by the way. As much as the chassis is a bit bulky, like I like the titanium finish, and the orange accents
sure.
are perfect. Those look great. I
Yeah.
love. I never use this for anything, but it looks cool.
Yeah. That's my only
Do you,
pushback. Is
do you
that it's very
trigger
large.
it? Do you trigger it easily? The action button? No.
I don't. No, I haven't accidentally. I never had that problem with any Apple Watch. I've never been one to like accidentally. I had friends that did that where they were like, if I push my hand down, I'll set it off, and I just was like, wear it higher then, I guess. I'm wearing it wrong.
You're wearing it wrong.
But
You're obviously not a casual watch wearer.
yeah, I would say, Mike, just wait for a refurbished Ultra.
That's what I'm gonna do. That's why I've
You'll
kinda
basically
decided
buy
on-
mine. You'll buy.
Imagine you put like a little like nick on like near the
I just
The wrist
engraved Nick's face on it.
that too.
A little Nick.
I don't think a little
Yeah,
nick
Nick,
exists.
Nick. Microscopic engraving that Apple wouldn't detect that says,
Nick
You suck,
Sweeney
Nick.
was here.
"Do you suck?"
That one works too.
Yeah, I think they would sell them refurbished for, mine was my watch was $850. Now they're selling it refurbished for $550. Ultra could next year be
800 or
$600
600, yeah.
That's a good
or
buy.
less.
I would pay that.
Yeah. Very happy it exists. It's not for me, but I'm happy
Agreed.
it exists.
Cool.
All right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Maybe we'll talk about AirPods Pro next week. And we'll catch you all in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.